I think we can start with the presentation with the Livia seminar. So today the presenter is Reza Davtalab. I think he's a student of Rafael. And the talk will be about dynamic ensemble selection using fuzzy hyperboxes. So thank you, Reza, for giving this talk. You can start. Normally, it will last around 30-40 minutes, and then we will have questions.
Hi, Reza.
Reza, are you when you're ready? You can start.
We cannot hear you. Maybe your microphone is off.
No. But before I think we talked with you and we could hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I had a problem with my microphone. So let's get started. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for delaying. I had a problem with my microphone. Thank you for taking time. I'm Reza Davtalab. I want to talk about my PhD project in this presentation. The project title is Dynamic Ensemble Selection using Fuzzy Hyperboxes. Yeah. Let me begin by the outline. During the presentation, I will present introduction, include an overall review of multiple classifier systems and problem statement. Then I will review fuzzy mimics hyperboxes. Next, I will explain objectives of these projects and introduce my methodology and some preliminary results. Finally, I will present my activity plan for this project. Nowadays, we face a lot of large-scale problems that are needed to be processed fast and accurate. Most of them are in classification area, but usually they are too complex that can be processed by only one simple classifier. So we need fast and reliable classifiers to deal with them. One of the best solutions for this problem is to use multiple classifier systems. And generally, in these systems, we use many classifiers in parallel. And at the end, we combine their outputs using an aggregation algorithm. There is two types of multiple classifiers. System includes static and dynamic approach, which in static methods, the same set of classifiers are used to predict all unknown samples, while in dynamic approach, the best classifiers are used for each query sample based on their performance on dynamic selection data or validation data. According to the studies, dynamic selection techniques is more efficient in this context. And in this project also, we are going to introduce a dynamic selection framework. In dynamic selection systems, the most competent classifiers are selected based on their performance around the query sample, which called region of competence or ROC. There are three main methods to define ROC, include potential function, clustering, and KNN-based algorithms, as you can see in this chart. Most of the current state of art dynamic selection approach use the KNN approach as a module for selecting the most competent classifier, as you can see in this table. Let me explain how they work with some example in this slides. Suppose we have a classification problem with two circle and square classes, and we want to classify them using two different classifiers. As you can see, C1 and C2 are our classifiers. The class boundaries is shown by red dashed line in this example, and the predicted class boundaries by each classifier is shown by straight lines, as you can see, C1 and C2 in this slide. You can find the real label of the query sample and the predicted label for the sample by C1 and C2 in this small table. In dynamic selection approach based on potential function, competence level of classifier is calculated using whole samples of dynamic selection data or validation data. And in this approach, we must calculate the distance of all validation samples to the query sample. So its computational complexity is so high, and it couldn't be a good choice for large-scale problem. In clustering-based techniques, the sample of dynamic selection data are clustered during the training phase. So for each given query sample, we find the corresponding cluster that the sample has fall inside or is close to it. And then competence of all classifiers are estimated based on their performance on this cluster. However, this approach usually suffers from low accuracy, and we need better estimation of that competence. So the last category, is a KNN-based approach. That, as I mentioned, most of dynamic selection approach work based on it. And in this approach, competence of each classifier is computed considering the k nearest instance to the query sample. Here, the k is a hyperparameter that could be optimized with some experiments, but there is no guarantee that this value works perfectly in all regions of the feature space. Let's call it k-value problem. As you can see in this example, when k is set to 5, the competence of C2 will estimate it higher than C1, while only C1 can classify the query sample correctly, as you can see in this table. And KNN-based approach have some other problems that I want to mention them in the next slides. Another problem is related to sensitivity of KNN to local density of samples. KNN-based algorithms neglect density of samples, as you can see in this slide. This issue could lead to selecting classifier 2 in this example, which is a not good choice for classifying the query sample, because we have a high density of samples on one side of the border. The next problem is using a small amount of available information to make decision in KNN-based dynamic selection approach. As you can see, only the information inside the ROC, or region of competence, is used to make a decision, and it may cause a lot of problems and making wrong decisions. In addition to these three problems, which we discussed, KNN-based approach suffer from high computational complexity. In this algorithm, we have to measure the distance between the given query sample and all other samples in validation dataset. So it's not possible to use this approach in large-scale data within acceptable time. Furthermore, current dynamic selection methods are not capable to learn incrementally, so they couldn't deal with changing environment and processing stream data. So what's the solution? Imagine the first example that I explained, the two classifiers and the same condition. To solve these problems, we have a simple idea to have better performance. Imagine we are able to draw some contours for each classifier to show where they are working well and where they are. So we will have something like this, some green areas and some red area. As you can see, the green area are the regions that the related classifier is more competent, and the red one is the areas that the classifier couldn't work well. If the query sample falls in the green area of each classifier, it means the classifier is competent to classify the sample. And if the sample falls in the red area, it means that the related classifier is not competent to classify the sample. We want to simulate this area using fuzzy concepts, which call fuzzy hyperboxes. As you can see, we can put the correct classified or misclassified samples in some hyperboxes, as you can see in this slide. They will store the location of samples and we can use them in generalization phase. And in this example, we put the correct classified samples in some hyperboxes that's shown by dashed area and green. Don't worry about the gap between the hyperboxes. They have a fuzzy effect around themselves. So we are able to make decision even outside of them. Actually, what we remind for the generalization phase would be like this, that you can see we covered all the area that each classifier is competent. In this example, the query sample is more close to the hyperbox of classifier 1, so this classifier will select it as a competent classifier. Fuzzy hyperbox, which is the main point of my project, is a complex space of feature space, and define it by using 2 points, mean and max point. And it have also a membership function that determines its covered area. Here you can see 2-dimensional hyperboxes and classification sample, which is solved by fuzzy hyperboxes in the right side. Hyperboxes have many advantages to use in machine learning systems. The key feature of them are listed here. They are simple and flexible structure that we can store needed regions using them. And they can be used to scalable problems, and they have online adaptation capability, and also they can make soft and hard decision. On the right side of the slides, you can see how hyperboxes expand to include a new sample during the learning phase. Okay. As mentioned before, hyperboxes has a membership function which has fuzzy effect around the hyperboxes. The membership value inside the hyperbox is 1, and it decreases as we move away from the hyperboxes. Here you can see hyperboxes with Gabriel's membership function from 2 different perspectives. It's the same thing. And now I'm going to show how we can solve the discussed problems with the current dynamic selection approach using hyperboxes. As we discussed, one of the main problems of KNN-based approach was the k-value problem that lead to wrong decision. And in this example, KNN will select C2, as I mentioned before. That is not a good choice in this example. But as you can see, using hyperboxes, we can select the correct, competent classifier, actually competent classifier in this example, that is the C1. Another problem was about the local distribution of samples, which KNN couldn't consider this issue. And as you can see in this example, we can solve this problem because we consider the distribution and just store the location of the samples by classifier, by the hyperbox. In this example, we will select C1 as a competent classifier by the hyperbox, but KNN will select the C2 that it's not good choice in also. Here, in this example, we use the misclassified samples to solve on the last example. As we discussed, KNN neglect whole information outside of the ROC, but we can save and use the information, as you can see in this example, and make a good decision based on this information. In this example, as you can see, the C2 has a two misclassified sample close to the query sample, and with using the hyperboxes, we can realize that in the generalization phase, and we will select the C1 at the end because it's hyperboxes that show the incompetent area is more away from the query sample. To better show the differences between these two approaches, we used P2 problem, which is a two-dimensional problem, and you use two simple classifiers, as you can see in this slide, classifier 1 and classifier C, and the result was amazing. As you can see, we have 1,000 samples in the generalization phase, and KNN couldn't classify correctly 196 samples from this test samples, and Oracle approach, which is a conceptual approach, actually has 177 errors in this example by these two classifiers. And so we will have 29 errors that we think it's because of KNN weakness in this example, because Oracle could solve 177, and the rest, I mean the 29 samples that KNN have more error in this example. We guess that these 29 samples are because of the KNN weakness. In this example, we can solve 8 samples, 8 errors of these 29 by fuzzy hyperboxes, and it's a good result for us, as you can see in this example. In this result, in OLA approach, which is a KNN-based dynamic selection approach in the left side, and the proposed method in the right side, you can see the red samples, which are here. I'm not sure that you can see them or not, but you can see in some areas that we have dense distribution of samples. It causes many problems, as you can see here, and you can compare with the proposed method in this area, and also here, because it's because of the density of samples, local density of samples. So we are going to use hyperboxes in this project, and we have three major objectives in this project as listed here. First, introducing a new dynamic selection approach based on fuzzy min-max hyperboxes, which has low computational complexity and high accuracy. Second, adapted the proposed approach to handle larger scale problems. And third, make the proposed method capable to process stream data in the changing environment. So in the first step, we are going to introduce a dynamic selection framework based on fuzzy hyperboxes. That's it's called FHDES. During the training phase, required hyperboxes are formed based on correct classified or misclassified samples. These hyperboxes are used to identify the most competent classifier during the generalization phase. And one of the main features of the proposed framework is that it could work based on well-classified or misclassified sample that's, according to the literature, never been used before. I mean, the misclassified based approach. In this slide, like diagram of the proposed approach based on misclassified sample is presented. In this approach, after learning base classifiers, we get the misclassified samples. Then hyperboxes are formed based on these samples. So we will have some hyperboxes for each classifier at the end that they show us the performance of classifiers in different areas. The maximum size of hyperboxes is controlled by theta value, which is a hyperparameter in this approach. In the generalization phase, membership value of all hyperboxes are calculated considering the location of the query sample. Then competence of each classifier is estimated using membership of its hyperboxes. Finally, the ensemble of more competent classifiers are selected to aggregation. Another contribution of this project would be introducing a novel membership function with smaller corners that could give better estimation of membership values, and also would be more robust against the noise samples. As you can see in the right side, it's the green shape is the proposed membership function, and the left side is the membership function of that proposed by Garbers and Varela. As you can see in this example, for points P and S, we have the same membership in the left side, but the distance between the S and P from to the hyperboxes is quite different, and D2, I mean the distance between S to the hyperbox is much higher. And we can solve this problem with the proposed membership function. As you can see in the right side, we will have for the P smaller membership than the S point. Excuse me, we will have a much higher membership for the P rather than the S point. Generally, to show differences between the proposed framework and previous dynamic selection approach, let's look at them from different points of view. Regarding the locality definition, we can categorize dynamic selection approach into two different groups. First group, we use a fixed region of competence like KNN clustering and potential function, and we will use a special condition for each classifiers in the proposed approach, as you can see in this chart. And also we can divide it, this approach regarding the activation phase. Some dynamic selection approach construct the required elements during the generalization phase or on demand. For example, KNN or potential function active in the during the generalization phase, and it wastes a lot of time in this phase, while clustering and the proposed approach formed needed hyperboxes or needed clusters during the training phase, and it saved a lot of time for us and for making faster decision during the generalization phase. In experimental analysis section, we will use a wide variety of data sets to evaluate the proposed approach and compare them with the state-of-art method, and we will have different experiments to evaluate them. Here some preliminary results of the first part of my project are shown. In this experiments, 20 different data sets are used, and obtained accuracy aligned with standard deviation are reported here. As you can see, in most of data sets, the proposed framework work better than the other state-of-art dynamic selection approach. In the second step of this project, we are going to eliminate unnecessary hyperboxes to deal with large-scale problems. In this step, we want to have a lower hyperboxes with the same coverage, because the fewer hyperboxes, the faster system. At the same time, we want to have and keep the same accuracy. Actually, we will have optimization problem this stage that we are going to solve them by optimization algorithms like PSO or GA. Actually, multi objective optimization algorithm like PSO. In third step, we are going to provide a dynamic selection method with incremental learning capability for processing stream data in changing environment. To address common problem in changing environment, there must be two major capabilities in the proposed framework. First, the ability to add new hyperboxes without changing the previous hyperboxes, and second, the possibility of removing hyperboxes that are not capable with the new concepts. Due to the independent structure of hyperboxes, it's possible to add new hyperboxes without any problem. But as you can see in this flowchart, we'll use a timing mechanism to remove the hyperboxes that are not compatible to the new concept. In conclusion, we will have three contributions in this project. First, introducing a new dynamic selection framework based on fuzzy hyperboxes. It's called FHDES. Second, we will make some change on the framework to deal with the large-scale problems. And third, we will adapt the proposed framework to incremental learning and dealing with the changing environment. Besides, we will introduce new fuzzy hyperboxes. In this slide, you can see my activity plan for this project. As you can see, I will divide the main line based on the three steps, and its steps includes literature review, implementation, hyperparameters, tuning, analyzing, and writing a journal paper. If you have any question, I would like to answer you.
Thank you very much, Reza, for your interesting presentation.
Thank you so
Seems
much.
that you have a very clear idea of where to go in your research.
Thank you so much.
Are there any questions?
Well, I have a lot of questions, but since I'm the supervisor, I'll leave other people ask before.
I have a question, maybe to start. So if I understood correctly, these hyperboxes are aligned to the representation axis. Is it true?
Excuse me.
The hyperboxes are always aligned to the axis?
Yes, yes, always. Because
So,
we want to, excuse me, because we want to use only two points to define them.
I see. But then what would happen if you rotate your data? Your boxes will be totally different. And so it means that the solution that you get depends on you can get a very different solution depending on the rotation of your representation.
Yes, we will have a different problem in this situation because all of the information will change, and we have the new hyperboxes for this problem. Yeah.
So do you expect this to be a problem? Because in theory, normal classifiers, I think they will give similar solution independently on the rotation of your data or change of.
I considered it in the conceptive category because the distribution of data is changing. So we will have a different hyperboxes for this situation. Yeah.
Okay.
In this case, would your membership function help with this rotation? Because you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that the example needs to be inside the hyperboxes, but there is all this region around that maybe it could compensate for some of the information that you lost. So that's something that you should you know, maybe pay a bit of attention, because you can easily rotate your data like with PCA or any other technique that you can use for that, and see how it would affect.
I think we lost Reza.
You didn't like the question.
Yeah.
He's back, I think. We cannot hear you, Reza.
Maybe I can ask a question if Alessandro is not there.
Reza, can you talk?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can
sorry
hear
for
you.
that. My Zoom application crashed. I don't know why.
Okay. Alessandro, are you there for your question?
Yeah, here I am. So thank you, Reza, for the presentation. I have a question. It's in your slide 17, you mentioned the convex space of feature space. Could you explain what that means, a convex space of feature space? I don't know if it's a type or...
Let me share my screen again. As you can see my screen. Can you see
Not
my?
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. As you can see in this slide, we will have only 2 points, mean and max points, and so we always have a rectangle in 2-dimensional problems, and a cube for example 3-dimensional problem. This space always will convex space. That's why we use this sentence. Can I explain it?
Alessandro, you are mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but I didn't understand. Is your feature space convex? That point I didn't understand exactly what you mean. A convex feature space.
Yeah, but let me draw something here. I'm not sure that doesn't work. I mean, we can have a different shape of hyperboxes that are not convex, you know.
Okay,
Rectangle.
but you mean yes, but it's not your. So it's not your feature space that it's convex. It's your hyperbox that is convex, right?
Yeah, but the hyperboxes covers some area of the feature space.
Or the feature
convex.
space.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's all. Thank you very much.
Robert.
Yes, hi Reza. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting. So you did a lot of work since the last 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that.
Thank
I
you
have
so much.
some, very simple question. If you go, can you go back to the slide 33?
33. Three. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you, do some error analysis comparing the when you compare the performance, for example, of the method based on the well-classified sample compared to the misclassified one?
Yeah.
Okay, so because the results are a little bit different, if you
Yes.
consider the performance by problem, so maybe they are complementary.
Yeah.
So in this way, you can. So it might be possible to combine both concepts. Considering the region of competence based on the hypervolume and the region of incompetence as well.
Yes, you're right.
You think it's possible to define a combination fusion function in order to combine both concepts?
Yes, it's a good idea. I'm working on it, but there's no result yet. But it's a good idea, as you can see in this slide.
Yeah.
If we can use the both information from the competent area and incompetent area and combine together, actually, I think I will have better performance, but it's not easy because we have to consider a lot of parameters and find a good solution to combine them.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea. I'm working on it, as I said. Yeah.
But you can investigate the use of some fuzzy operator, in order to combine those membership functions, I could say.
Yes, it's possible.
Yeah, but the first thing to do is to verify, in the test bed, so in the set of experiment that you already done, so if the classifiers, so are complementary or not. So if they make some error in the considering different samples, so it means that maybe you can combine both concepts, in order to improve, the selection of the competent classifiers.
Yes, we have to discuss more about this.
Yeah, but if they are not complementary, so it means that modeling the positive or the negatives, so it's equivalent, So it's important to investigate the data after running these experiments, to get some insight about the importance of considering the hypervolume where the classifier is competent versus the hypervolumes where the classifier is incompetent. So you use two different, concepts, in the definition of the region of pertinence, I could say. You understand my point?
Yeah, I get it. I think I have to have more discuss about only the relationship and the equation that we will use to combine them. Sometimes we don't have any incompetent area close to the query sample, and the other hand, maybe there is no, for example, the competent area close to the query sample. That's why I think we must have a more discuss about the equation that combine these two aspects. But totally, I agree with you.
Can you come back to the same slide 33 again?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems to me that the performance of the oracle is quite low. So maybe you should also investigate the way that you generated the pool of linear classifiers, because usually, so the performance of the oracle is close to 99, something like that, you know. And for some problems, like for example, ILPD, so 88.9, so it's a little bit low, I think.
Yeah, I checked this issue. I think it's because of the calibration of the classifiers. I'm using the what was the name? I'm using a function to calibrate the classifier, but it's not good in this situation. I have to change it. I had some preliminary result for the new approach for the calibration, but it wasn't complete to bring here to this presentation. I have to change the calibration. It's because of the calibration, yeah.
Okay, Reza, but based on the new calibration method, so are you able to generate more reliable pool of classifiers? Is the performance of the oracle increased significantly?
Yes,
I mean, okay.
yes. The new approach for collaboration, I mean calibration increased the oracle accuracy. Yeah.
Okay, just a last comment. So if you can go back to slide 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit more better? I mean, this I don't see a big difference between both when you check the red sample. So
yeah, what you see in circle shape are the dynamic selection data on this screen, and what you see.
But sorry, the distribution of the sample here.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, do you represent the selection data set, the validation data set, or the test set?
Yes, except these stars that are in the test data sets, and I bring them here to show the errors. Yeah.
Might be interesting to zoom in some interesting area, you know, because otherwise it's difficult to appreciate. I mean, maybe if you can select one or two sub-example, I mean, in order to illustrate the difference between both approaches.
Yeah, I try to explain on this shape, but for the next time, I think it's better to have a bigger shape. I mean, zoom in some areas to show the differences. Yeah, for the next presentation, I will do that.
Okay, thank you very much, Reza.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
See you very soon.
See you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just to complement something that Robert told you, you know, when he was talking about the thing to use the negatives, like misclassified and the correctly classified, what he was talking is not like you need to have a different membership function, but just do an analysis, let's say with this P2 problem that you did with this error analysis. So when you did this analysis, you consider the misclassified, right? Or to see which errors happen with your fuzzy hyperboxes and which error happens with the dynamic selection technique. Can you go to the slide before? Is it 23?
Yeah.
23.
23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had this analysis here that you have one analysis using your fuzzy hyperboxes DES. So you know that 8 errors of the KNN you could solve with this technique. So you could, based on this analysis, also see what would be the difference of modeling the negatives and modeling the positives.
Oh yeah, it's a good idea.
Are they different on that? because out of it, you can already have some insights to, of course, that's the synthetic problem. It would be better if you start with it and goes to the other training data sets to see, but you can use the same type of statistics in order to understand, if they behave differently by correctly classifying different examples.
Yeah, good idea. Let me write them. Yeah, you're right. It's better to explain the differences between the misclassified and correct classified versions of the FHDS. Yeah. Yeah, it's better. For the next presentation, I will bring the result of both approach. Yeah.
Okay, Eric had a question.
Yes, hello. Thanks, Reza, for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
I just, well, I have a few questions, but maybe we start with a general one. And apologies if I don't want you to repeat something. I had to step out for a little bit during your presentation, but I wanted to get your feeling on, like today, like what, I guess there's a lot of work on dynamic selection, and it's a good area, but it's not clear for me right now, given everything we know, where, like, what kind of situations dynamic selection are useful for. Could you clarify where you think dynamic selection is most useful? Like what kind of problems, what kind of challenges with the data? Where can we use dynamic selection and, let's say, surpass the state of the art or get very good results?
Mm-hmm. We have two types of multi-classifier system. Let me bring the slide. Yeah. Here.
Sure, but is there a place where dynamic selection as a concept excels?
Yeah, we have two types of multiple classifiers. In static one, we select some classifiers at the training phase before the generalization,
right,
and we save them during the generalization phase, and we don't change them. So for any new query sample, we will use the same ensemble, the same classifiers. But in dynamic selection approach, we will select different classifiers for each new query sample. We try to select classifiers that are more competent to classify the query sample.
Sure. But Reza, I understand. Thanks for that. But I understand all that. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, in terms of the types of problems, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Are they particularly effective in problems where you have overlapping data, a lot of dispersion among data, or maybe problems where you have some prior knowledge on the capture conditions?
Yeah. Generally, according to the studies, dynamic selection is much more better than the static one. And one of our objectives in this project is solving and dealing with changes in stream data. In this context, you couldn't expect that static selection could work because everything is static. But dynamic selection is much better in this situation, that we have a changing environment. In this context, yeah, we can say that dynamic selection is much better than static.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Fair enough. Thanks. The second question I had is more about what is the algorithm you use to? So I saw in your slides that you use fuzzy min-max classifier. Is that right?
Yes.
Why
yes.
why select that one in particular? There are other. I mean, there are other techniques you can use to, like, I guess, use fuzzy hyperboxes as a basis for either clustering or classification. So why this one in particular? Is there anything that went behind that choice, or?
Yeah, in this context, I mean the dynamic selection, we need some things to select better classifier. I mean the more competent classifier for each query sample. And hyperboxes provide a good opportunity to select the more competent classifier in each context and for each query sample. It's very interesting concepts, things to this context.
I see that, but like there are other algorithms that allow you to learn hyperboxes, right?
No, but hyperboxes is the base elements of fuzzy min-max neural networks. I mean, the middle layer of the fuzzy min-max neural networks is hyperboxes. So
But that's it. Like I guess in my prior research, I use things like fuzzy art map, things like that do that, you know. And I'm just wondering, and there are others, you know. I'm just wondering why this one in particular. Is there anything about it that you like or that is useful for what you're trying to do?
Actually, the main idea, I mean, the fuzzy hyperboxes and art map are the same, exactly the same. Just things that are is different between them is the membership function. And in art map, you're using more fuzzy operators to adjust the shape of hyperbox and the area that they are coverage. But here we use a different approach to justify them, and it's more simpler, I think. That's why I prefer to use this approach to justify the adjusting the classifier, the hyperboxes. Yeah.
So it's simplicity and maybe better control over the shapes of the boxes.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your good comments. Thank you.
So thank you again, Reza. Are there other questions? Otherwise, I think we should.
I think
close.
some people on the chat asked some questions.
I
Oh,
didn't see it.
let me.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see it.
It's not a question.
It's better. It's okay to talk, guys. You don't have to chat us questions. I think it's okay to talk.
Yeah, maybe
Ahmad, you were there. Maybe you can talk. Maybe not.
Maybe there was also a question from Matt. No, Matt just left. Ahmad.
How about Abdel Malik? I think he's in France. Maybe Abdel, you want to ask your question?
Yes, I write the question in the chat, Eric. First of all, thank you for the presentation, Reza. It's a good presentation. I just ask, my question is about you present result from your method, good result, but you not really discuss about the misclassification. What is the problem with the point of the misclassification? Have you tried to study this problem?
You mean the approach based on misclassified samples, or I didn't
Yes,
get
for
you.
example, at the end of the method, when you present the result, you have a number of points is a good classification, and you have a problem with some point with misclassification. Have you tried to study why this misclassification?
Yeah, I have a lot of examples that I can use them to show the differences between the misclassified samples version and the correct classified version, but we don't have enough time to explain more than that. If you want to know the differences, I can explain you.
If you have some time, if you have not some time, it's not a problem. Because I want to understand why this misclassification. It is about your method or about the problem of the training or the testing. This is what I want to do. To know.
Can you show my screen?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. In this slide, I explained that we can use the information that are obtained by the misclassified samples or the correct classified samples. We have two types of information. If we use any of them, we can solve the problem. As Dr. Sabrin discussed, we can use both of them in the same time and combine these two types of information together to get better results. We can't neglect the information obtained by the misclassified samples. You know, we are trying to combine the classifiers. We are not speaking about the accuracy of the individual classifiers, you know.
Okay.
Can I explain?
Yes, sir. Okay, okay, okay. Another question, perhaps, Eric?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, have you studied the complexity of your method? Compare with the state of the art, for example?
Yeah, as I explained in this slide, we have a lot of, I mean, the high complexity, computational complexity for KNN and potential function, because we have to measure the distance between the query samples and all the instance in the data set. But here, when we have something like that, we just measure the distance between the query samples and the hyperboxes, and the number of hyperboxes are much lower than the number of instances. So we will have a better computational time, or we have a less computational complexity in this method.
Okay, thank you.
Did you? You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, I think we answer all the questions. Maybe there was the one from Ahmed about how your model can be explainable, an explainable model. I don't know if Reza, you can say something about that.
Excuse me, I didn't get you.
Ahmad is asking how your model.
Hi guys,
can
hi
be...
Reza, hi Reza. Thank you
Yeah,
so
hi.
much for your presentation. I'm sorry I cannot speak loudly because it's midnight or after midnight in China. So quick and simple question. Usually I want to go in the biomedical field. So usually or these days we ask if the classifier model or any machine learning techniques can be explainable. It means we can monitor each step. We don't need to use the technique or the model as a black box. We need to know what happened inside this black box. So consider that your model is a black box. Can we see what happened inside this black box?
I think the proposed method is much clearer than another methods, for example, potential functions based methods or other, because we simply have some hyperboxes that we can see them in the, at least in the two-dimensional problems.
I see.
Yeah.
So your input to your model will be like a vector with elements, with values, right? The features will be like value inside one vector, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The input of your model. So why there is a possibility, for example, you think in ways that you can take the image like an image and then work on the convolutional layers and then use the last layer as one vector as the input into the classifier model you use. Instead, the softmax, the classical one used in CNN. And then you can implement your model instead. What do you think in this way?
Yeah, we can use it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. As you can see in this example, I replay again. We simply expand the hyperboxes and we can contract the hyperboxes in a simple operation. So we can use them as a structure to convolve a picture and capture some important part of the image and process this part in the next step. So
it will be like a novel deep learning model.
Yeah.
Instead, hyperbox.
Right? Yeah, we can use it in the convolutional approach. You have a fixed size of hyperboxes, actually, or
right.
yeah. But in this situation, you can change the size and adjust them during the learning phase and use them in the next step. Yeah, it's a very interesting issue. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If there aren't any more questions, I think I should thank again Reza and thank everyone for being here and participating to this seminar. And so thank you, everyone. And we will see again in 2 weeks, probably.
Thank you so much, everyone, to give me good comments and good question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Salut, Marco.
Salut.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.